All right, guys, we are live. Welcome back to the SuperCoach Tragics podcast, BBL episode number one. Very, very excited. I've been pretty bored in the off season, so yeah, first episode. I've been doing some NBL, but to be honest, I have no idea what I'm doing there. So I guess BBL, where I have at least somewhat of knowledge, I can contribute something. So tonight we have Glenn as per usual, mate. Glenn, welcome back, mate. How was your off season?
Yeah, good, mate. I started the NBL, done one round and thought I don't like NBL, so I just thought I'll wait for BBL where I know what I'm talking about. Ish.
Yeah. Yeah, love it. And tonight we have a special guest with us tonight. So Ben from Honeyball. Ben, mate, glad to have you on board. Thanks for clearing up your schedule to make time for us, mate.
Yeah, pleasure, Dan. Thanks for having me on. What is it? I think 10 days until the first game of BBL. So good time to be chatting about it all. I know that it feels like there's heaps of news each day. So let's try and make some sense of it all.
Yeah. Probably a good thing we have you here, mate, because some of the stuff that you can contribute is top-notch information. So on that, let's talk. So Honeyball, mate, tell us about what you do with your subscriptions and whatnot, and what you're doing in the background there.
Yeah, well, if you're not familiar with Honeyball, we put out a heap of news about Big Bash, every little bit you need, really. Also, lots of insights and Q&As and bits and pieces, which will help you. So honeyball.com.au is the website across all the social channels. We've actually just put out our season magazine, which is the best kind of preview mag for the season to help you, kind of get ahead of the pack so you can quickly do your study and research. It's got things like Q&As with the back-to-back winner, Andrew Langley. I've got an expert panel on there who've nominated a bunch of round one must-haves and guys to fade and got the value picks. So all the stuff to help you pick your starting squad. And then there's a bunch more stuff, availability calendar, T20 form guide, which has got all the scores of players who play in other leagues around the world, like your IPL or the 100, those kind of comps, and their scores converted into SUPERCOACH. So you can kind of figure out if the imports are actually any good. And then we've got club-by-club rundowns and player profiles for every single Big Bash player with a SuperCoach slant. So heaps of info. I could probably talk about it all day, but I don't want to bore your listeners. But jump on honeyball.com.au and check it out. It's $15 for the mag. And yeah, there's heaps of content on the site as well.
Oh, fantastic, mate. I think we've used this in the past, and I think one we've had a lot of success, actually. I know, Glenn, you've got a pretty good average with your SuperCoach. Your son, Ty, has an unbelievable average in SuperCoach. And information we get from Honeyball has been very crucial to that. So everyone, please jump on board. We'll post the link up in the below this as well, so everyone can have a look and make sure you get the best information you can. So thanks for that, mate.
I couldn't do any of what I do, and neither could Ty without Honeyball. He is the seed of BBL. Every bit of information, that's the source that we go to. So everything that's been Tyrone tonight, my success, has been coming from information from Honeyball. I am going to subscribe. So a question, Ben, if I subscribe, is that magazine a part of it, or is that a separate entity? Or
magazine's separate to the subscription. You'll get a 33% discount on the mag, so worthwhile doing. And if you subscribe, you get access to all the articles for the next 2 months for the course of the whole season. So well worth doing. I can't talk it up enough.
Yeah. Well, I'll be grabbing one. I said to you I was going to get one. We're getting one. So I'll grab one straight after this pod, mate, and I'll throw it up on our page as well so everyone knows. It's already up on our Tragics page, so make sure you check it out, guys, because you won't succeed in BBL without this information as far as I'm concerned. If you want to win or do well, grab it.
Yeah, 100%, and especially having someone like a back-to-back BBL winner contributing as well, which is just unheard of. That's crazy. And didn't I might be speaking out of turn here. Did he not win the IPL as well?
He did. And talking to him, some of his insights, the way he thinks about it, are just they'll make you. They're really eye-opening. They'll really make you think about what you're doing differently. So well worth reading that. He's obviously got that proven track record, so definitely worth perusing. It's about five or 6 pages, that Q&A. I didn't want to cut any out because it was all gold. So there's heaps in there.
Nice.
Yeah. I think one of my favorite things actually about that is the fact that, like you mentioned earlier, I don't want to talk too much because I want to make people like not give away the milk for free. But is where we have these unknown players that come over from overseas and we don't really know much about them. And I love that little form guide that we can see from other comps around. that way we can get an idea on what these young guns or these guys that maybe unheard of from Australian standpoint, and we get to see what they're actually capable of, and they come to Australia and they just and they can either continue that form or they it's good information to have.
Yeah, one thing I couldn't get in the mag because there's a space constraint is something I've got on the website, which is it's got the game by game breakdown of all the players in these other leagues, where it tells you what batting position they had, which is so helpful for guys like Walter and Overton, who you're just trying to figure out where they'll bat and if they'll bowl. So that kind of info's on the website, which is really helpful, I reckon.
Yeah.
Love it. Awesome. All right, so let's get started on our team analysis. And what better way to start than with Perth? Do you have some selected teams there? We'll start with you, Ben, mate. You have some good idea what the Perth team was going to look like when it starts?
I hope so. I'm a big Scorchers fan. Probably go a bit too hard on loving the Scorchers, but I've got a predicted 11. There's a few disclaimers for this. Obviously, Mitch Marsh will be away with Test duty. There's a few others. Ashton Agar, we think is going to be injured for the start of the Big Bash. Matt Kelly looks like he's pushing it to be fit. And we know Crawley, whose first name eludes me, he's going to miss the first few games with England duty as well. So there's a few absentees there. So as a result, my predicted lineup is Sam Whiteman to open, Cooper Connolly opening with him, which is a big call. I think it might be Connolly or Hobson. 3 Hardy, 4 Inglis, 5 Turner, 6 Evans. Then 7, it'll be, I've got Hobson, but it could also be Connolly. And then 8 Richardson, 9 Ty, 10 Behrendorff, and 11 Morris.
I honestly, that would be mind blowing having Connolly open the batting, because he's been in my team a few times in and out just to have that Perth kind of player with the double game, and he's a good value price pick as well. And we know he's very good. He has that bowling ability too. He's actually has he been bowling lately?
He has, yeah. He bowled in the Marsh Cup last week and got given 10 overs, and then also batted for WA in that game. Hence why I'm flagging him as a potential opener. There's some news coming out today that Hamish McKenzie, the other spinner, is injured. I think it's a back stress fracture, so he might not be available till later in the Big Bash, opening up the possibility for Connolly to be that guy. So there's the potential for a dream role. If he's opening the batting and bowling 2 or 3 overs, that is the prime Supercoach role, and he's only 75K bat bowler, so he's really someone you need to be having on your radar.
Yeah, definitely.
And can I just add to that the first 2 games for Perth are in Melbourne, which are spin conducive to spin. So, I mean, Connolly and Whiteman are both in my side. They have been pretty much from the beginning. Points per dollar both make sense. Whiteman opens. Whiteman's been in incredible form. And Connolly, if he opens with him, then he's a must-have. And even if he bats at 7, I still believe he'll spin with Agar out and no actual form line spinner. So would you agree with that?
Yeah, definitely. Yep, I think so. Probably the other note to mention about the Scorchers is they've still got a few spots to fill. So they've still got an import to sign, which might throw all this on its head. So we've got to wait and see on that. They might also sign Cam Green. I don't know what's going on with him, but if he's not in the test squad, I don't see the point of him just sitting around doing nothing. So he might end up in the Big Bash. So just a few things to keep your eye on.
Yeah, it's the one thing in BBL. Sorry, Dan, I would say this. The one thing in BBL is one addition to a side or even one subtraction to the side can change the whole dynamic in BBL. So it's something to be really important. It's really important to know who's in, who's out, because someone like Hobson being in or someone coming in that's a mainline spinner can change the whole dynamics of other players that you're looking at.
Yeah, 100%. Glenn, I'll start with you, mate. Any players here? You already mentioned a couple that you'd be interested in starting with.
Yeah, so Whiteman and Connolly are the 2 I definitely have in my side. The other 2 that I've been throwing around is Ty, obviously, but Aaron Hardy. I mean, I need to see the side and how it's picked before I choose Hardy. But if he's batting at 3 and could possibly bowl, he's a player at 178 that I think is of interest. Ty, I mean, they're playing 2 in Melbourne, so Richo's not at that points per dollar a player I'm actually looking at. I know a lot of people are. And my original decision was to get him so I could swap him to short round 2 because I like to be able to do that. But, yeah, Ty, Hardy, Connolly and Whiteman are the 4 I'm looking at this point, mate.
Any others there, Ben, that you think would be interesting to start with?
Yeah, I think the Scorchers' bowling attack are all pretty attractive. Unfortunately, because their season was so strong last year, they're priced pretty high, so people might be looking elsewhere. But one who's a little bit underpriced because he only played four rounds last season is Lance Morris. It looks like he's not going to be in the test setup. Actually, I'm not 100% sure about that, given they've rested him for a Shield game. So he's a 157K bowler. The only knock on him is the fact that he may not play consistently. It all really depends on that test duty stuff. He had a back stress fracture in the off season, and I know they've been managing him a fair bit this season. But if he does get an extended run, he's definitely someone to look at.
Can I ask you where you see him bowling his overs, mate?
Yeah, he'll bowl a few up front, I would imagine. That's what he did when he played last year.
Yep.
And then it kind of depends on who else is in the side. Ty will bowl death. Richardson probably bowls death as well, so he gets squeezed out to the up front and then maybe the middle overs. Behrendorff is primarily a power play bowler, so he'll bowl up front as well. Yeah,
absolutely.
I find that Lance Morris is that consistent kind of very Siddle-esque kind of way he bowls. He should be bowling those more middle overs to keep the run rate, the economy rate a bit lower. So he might not get those death overs, which is what you want in a bowler, I guess, to get those wickets. But he's very consistent. Would have a pretty good run economy rate as well, which could get some decent bonus points.
Yeah, that power over that they have now is like, say, you can see Richo bowling 2 and then 1 for that round 12-13 where they bring him in. Sometimes you can end up with 1 at the end, which could get someone like a Hardy a death over with Ty. So there is that chance of that. Do you agree with that, Ben? Or
Yeah, I think so. Like last season, it was hard to get a read on what the Scorchers were doing because they were alternating their bowlers a fair bit. Like Matt Kelly was playing, he bowled a bit of death. David Payne, who signed with the Strikers today, he was playing as well and bowled a bit of death. So the roles changed a fair bit. So there's probably some uncertainty about the precise roles. So it would be hard to be too definitive about it just yet.
Yeah.
Before we move on to the next, Cam, anything else we want to talk about when it comes to the Scorchers, or are we happy with that?
Well, I think Hobson at 62K, if he opens as well, could be an interesting pick. There's a lot of people spending big money on keepers. Whiteman at 62K, I just really think that people should consider that option. That's the one I really want to push at people. Whiteman has been in really good form, and just keep an eye on Whiteman. That's my tip for the Scorchers.
I'd probably just jump in on that same point. The fact that the Scorchers they've got a bye, they've got 2 byes in rounds 4 and 5. If you are picking guys like Whiteman or Hobson or Connolly for cash generation, that cash generation is going to stall when they have the 2 back-to-back byes, and it's only a 9-round season this year. So if you are thinking of using Scorchers for cash gen, I think you should look elsewhere because their value is not going to skyrocket the way others will.
Yeah, it's a good way to think about it, actually. It makes sense because, like, I keep forgetting that because it used to be 13 rounds, I'm pretty sure we used to do. But having 9 rounds, that's going to cut it down real short. So, and that's
just remember.
Go, Glenn.
Sorry, Dan. I was going to say, just remember, though, round 6 and 7, Perth have a doubles again, 2 doubles in a row. So, I mean, I play the game a little differently. So the way I would use those Perth players would be as my from the bench. If that makes sense for looping options. But yeah, I agree with you, Ben. If you're doing it for cash gen, that wouldn't be the way to go. I agree with you. That's what your target is.
Yeah. This is why we do this podcast, because I don't do my research beforehand, and I just get the experts on to tell me how to do these things. So, love that information. Awesome. All right, should we move on to the next team?
Absolutely, mate.
What better team to go to than the first ever triple game week Brisbane Heat? You know what, Glenn? I'll start with you this time, mate. You got a team written out there?
I do, and it's come from Ben's site. So again, hopefully it should coincide with Ben. I mean, all the information we get for BBL does come from Honeyball. I can't say that enough. So
I just hope the article's up to date, Glenn, before you run through it, because this team has changed. This team has changed daily, so we'll see how we go.
All right. Well, I'll read out what I have because I had Munro and Usman opening, but I know, and then Labuschagne at 3, Billings at 4. Then I've got Brown or Wood coming in at 6, Walter at 7, Bartlett at 8, Wildermuth at 9, Johnson at 10, and Kuhneman at 11.
Sounds good. I think you missed 5, which I've got Bryant as.
Sorry, I have missed him. Yeah, Brian is 5. That's right. Yeah. And what I just want to say before we start on this side is I see this Heat side as being very, very trappy. And I just want people to know that with players coming in, players going out, 3 games in a row, players could be rested. So buy at your own peril.
Yeah, I think the big take out of this is there 2 players. I'm only going off what I read in an article. There's 2 players from the Australian team that might play the first 2 games of this triple and then disappear. So would you be better off going someone that's playing a double game rather than playing these 2 players? Because what's the point of getting them if they're not playing the triple?
Well, the question you need to ask yourself is, would you own Labuschagne any other time on a double? My answer to that is yes. Would you own Usman Khawaja at 125k? My answer to that is probably yes. So if you knew they were playing 2, the players I think will play 3, and Ben can chime in if I'm wrong, is the ones that are players like Munro, I think Billings, possibly Walters, would be 3 that I'd be confident might play all 3.
And one good thing about this, actually, because like one of the questions I'm guessing we could ask is how many Heat players is too many? And because they're going to have the 2 rounds you can play them, and then they're going to have that round 3 bye. So you are going to need to trade out these players anyway. So having someone that's expendable like Khawaja or Labuschagne, so you can literally just trade them out without having any regret because they're not playing anyway.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I'll just jump in on Khawaja and Marnus. I don't think they will play 2 games. I think it's going to be only 1. So the first game the Heat play is December 7. The second game they play is December 9. And the Australia Test Camp will gather in Perth on December 9. So unless they somehow get a release for that game, I don't think they'll play. That's still somewhat in the air, but I'd find it hard to believe they would do that. So I don't think you're picking a player in a double. You're picking them on a single as a result. I don't think they're an option at all. The ones you mentioned, Glenn, the 3 English guys probably feel like the only ones who you feel like will play all 3 of the triple. So they're the ones you're leading towards, which kind of guides your question down about how many is too many, because you don't really want to pick guys who are playing 1 or 2 of a triple when they're not really that an attractive option. You could argue Kuhneman could play all 3, but then again, maybe they flip him out for Schwepson for a game. Don't know. Even Bartlett, it looks like he's in good form, but he didn't play much last year. He's had some injury history recently, so maybe he needs a rest. 3 games in 7 days is a lot. So there's just all this uncertainty which creates, which probably turns you off going too hard on them, given there's 4 other sides with doubles.
Quick question. So if Usman and Lab were to jump out and not place 2 and 3 game, that would be interesting for Wood Brown, right? Would possibly could move Munro and Brown as opening for those games. So, I mean, as an option, you could maybe have Brown, and even if he doesn't, he plays a 5 or 6 for the first game, but you've got him for opening for the next 2. And at his price point at 88.6, I think points per dollar, it doesn't make, it makes a bit of sense to take a risk there.
Yeah, I think they'll have to pick one of Brown or Wood in that first game. And that's probably in a middle order role.
Yep.
Which isn't really their go. I know that Wood's played a little bit of middle order stuff at club level lately, so he's probably the one I would think would get the inside running on that role. But if whoever doesn't get picked in that first game, there's no way you're picking them in your team because it's way too big a risk. So you could potentially pick someone like Wood if you play in the first game and loop him and then see how he goes. You could even see his first 2 scores before you actually decide if you're going to take the score. So definitely one of those cheapies you could consider for that reason, just to loop.
Absolutely. Can I ask you a bit about Walter, mate? I haven't had a chance to look at him. I've been looking at Murr and a few of the runs from a few of the others. I haven't had a chance to really look much about him. Yeah,
so he's probably more of a bowling all-rounder, I reckon, but he can smack him. When he bats, he can really smack him. And I mean, the price is pretty intriguing, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think the fact that Spencer Johnson's got some injury troubles kind of brings him into the game because he's a left arm quick. Spencer Johnson's also a left arm quick. So they probably want that in their attack. I think that's why they let Liam Guthrie go, is just because Walters can fill that void. So I'm kind of feeling confident that he will bowl a bit. And then you probably want him to come in at 5-6 preferably, but he has batted. You could potentially bat a bit lower than that. But it might just be circumstantial as to what role he takes. So there's a lot to like. But yeah, there's still some uncertainty. I mean, it's so hard to trust the English guys when they've never played BBL before. So I'm always treading carefully with these guys.
A player I really like, but I don't know his role or if he'll play 3 games, is Wildermuth. I think he's underused, and if Wildermuth was to get 3 games, mate, he would not only be my side, he would be my lock captain. That's how much I like Wildermuth. But I'd need him. I don't know. I'd need him to bowling his overs.
Yeah, I reckon he's a real smoky because he's so cheap. He could be a guy you loop off the bowler's bench. There's a lot of uncertainty if he's going to get 3 games, like you just said. He missed all of last season because of injury. His form this season hasn't been amazing, so he's kind of gone under the radar. But then again, he could get that role in the side. The spanner in the works in all this is that the Prime Minister's 11. So there's 4 guys from the heat who are in that side. So they'll all miss the first 2 games of the triple, but they'll probably return for the 3rd. So that suddenly pushes guys like Wildermuth potentially out of the side because it'll be performance-based, really. And Michael Nessa is one of those guys who probably returns and plays the same role as Wildermuth. So he could be expendable depending on how he goes, which is just so hard to predict at this point.
Absolutely. Right. Who else that's coming back? There's Swepson, Nisa.
It'll be Renshaw, Pearson, McSweeney, and Nisa are the 4 in the Prime Minister's 11. So the other 3 are all batsmen, so they probably won't affect Wildermuth, but Nisa's the clear one. I don't think he'll be in the Test squad, so he should come back into Big Bash. I think the Test squad, Boland will be the backup bowler, and then maybe Lance Morris. So I feel like Nessa will become available in the Big Bash.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I think that was my question, was based on Wildermuth, because he was a fringe player last year. They didn't really use him as much as they should have, and I love Wildermuth. I think he's a great player, but he just didn't get utilised that much. So
yeah, he was out last year with injury, so he had a back injury, so that's why he didn't play at all. I think it was a couple of years ago. He might have been a popular round 1 pick and came out with a massive score, so everyone remembers him for that. Just hasn't really kicked on since then. He did a bit of Australia A stuff at the time, but he's kind of fizzled a bit, and I think he's just turned 30, so his career's kind of meandering along.
I just want to speak to Billings. So as a rule, I would not normally pick a bat 4. I usually like my bats at least 1, 2, and 3. But for a triple, it makes Billings a little bit more enticing. I think there's some interesting ones with Dermy and Whiteman and Philippe. All points per dollar makes sense. But Billing batting 3 at 116, I don't hate it. You'd have to think that he bats, in each of those games. The matchups, I think the Heat are outmanned against both matchups. I think they'll struggle in both games. I think from memory it's against Stars and Thunder.
I think there's a Strikers game in there as well.
That's correct. Yeah, that's right. And Strikers. Right you are.
Yeah, Billings is interesting. Like he'll get the gloves with Pearson away for the first 2 games, which potentially adds 10, 20 points through catches and whatnot, which is handy. Otherwise, he feels like a guy who'll probably average 30, which is not great, but if he does that 3 times, it's a reasonable score. You're right though, Glenn. The concern is if they do bring in Brown or Wood and open with them, then maybe Billings gets shunted down the order 4 to 5 kind of vibes, which is a big turn off. But I do think the fact that Pearson is in the PM's 11 squad, he'll get some extra points from being wicketkeeper. I think it's enough to go with him.
Yeah, okay.
He's well priced as well, so I don't think it's a huge gamble. He'll play all 3, so he feels like one of the more secure options from the Heat.
Yeah, well, I have him. I have Munro and Billings at this point, and but I've been umming and ahhing. I mean, if he didn't have a triple, I wouldn't even be looking at him. That's been honest with you. I mean, Philippe, there's others with doubles that I would go over him, but the fact that he's playing the triple, there's that one extra game, that's one extra opportunity, you know. So yeah, I sort of talk about that one. And Brian, geez, he's fallen off a cliff. I mean, I love the boy when he's just that guy that can go really well and then just doesn't seem to get past 30. You know, he has the potential, that kid, but he just doesn't deliver, does he?
No, that's spot on. Yeah, he used to open the batting and would frustrate and make those quick fire, 15 off 10 or whatever, 20 off 10, never go on with it. They've moved him into more of a middle order role, so he'll be that 5 or 6 guy, which really isn't Supercoach friendly. I don't really think he's an option for that reason. He did make 100 on the weekend in club cricket. I'm not sure we should be jumping on someone because of club cricket form, but noteworthy. It was a game where both teams got bowled out cheaply, so he stood out in a tough wicket, so well done to him, but I don't think he's someone you want to go for.
No, absolutely. Too far down the order for me.
Yeah, definitely right. But one thing about you mentioned before about Billings being at number 4, it's a bit of a risk there. I know I've got him at the moment as well. But when you look at the Heat, how often do we see Heat collapse a lot? Top order, they have a habit of collapsing, a long history of collapsing. So, and they've always had that one steady hand. And I'm going to say it's usually Pearson. That is that steady hand that kind of slows him down. And if they got Billings there, they could pretty much take his time. Maybe he won't get the strike rate that we'd like him to get, but he can get it. He can build up to that and start getting. So I can see him getting at least one good game in that triple with a good score. And I'm going to pick Adelaide for that because Adelaide's a great batting wicket. I really get to score there.
Yep.
Awesome. All right. Anything else about Heat before we move on to the Renegades?
Just the other big option is Colin Munro, and broke the story on Honeyball today that he looks like he's going to be available for all 3 games of the triple. So he's in Abu Dhabi for the T10 League, which runs up until December 9, clashing with the start of the Big Bash. Obviously, Brisbane's first game is December 7. So there's some concern that he would miss that first game. But I'm told by the Heat that he'll be there in Australia next week, December 3. They expect him to arrive. So that's very reassuring if you wanted to lock someone in who's going to play all 3.
I like Munro as well. Munro especially, he's coming off a very short break between games as well. He might not have time to lose that form. And Munro, when he's in form, he's a slogger. He can get some quick runs.
Yeah, he hasn't been as in good form as he has been in the past. He has had some really good form at times. He's a very good player. When he's on, it's hard to get out.
And I think the way that Brisbane play as well will have the license to go for it. I think he'll take that license and go with it. So,
yeah.
All right, let's go. Let's look at the Renegades now. So let's go have a look at the suggested lineup there from Ben.
The Gades. All right. Where are we? Okay, I'll walk this through one by one. I've got Joe Clark opening the batting with Quentin de Kock. De Kock will take the gloves. The Gades have said that. Sean Marsh I've got at 3, pending fitness, because he hasn't played at any level for a long time, so I don't know what's going on with him. At 4, I've got Nick Maddinson. 5, I've got Aaron Finch. 6, I've got John O'Wells. 7, I've got Will Sutherland. 8, Tom Rogers. 9, Kane Richardson. 10, Adam Zampa. And 11, Majib. I've left out Peter Siddle, who I think they'll just manage and rotate a fair bit this year, given his age. I think he turns 39 today or tomorrow or something like that. And I've also left out Jake Fraser McGurk. He looks like a cheapie, but I just don't see a role for him in that side unless Sean Marsh isn't fit, where he might slot in. They're probably the 2 controversial ones. There's also scope that Nathan Lyon could play the first game, but I just don't think they're picking him ahead of Zampa or Majib. So that's my predicted lineup. You guys might protect that, so I'll leave it to you.
I like that you said that because Sean Marsh. I think Sean Marsh and Fraser McGurk are they're interchangeable. So yeah, if Sean Marsh isn't ready, Fraser McGurk slots in that spot perfectly. That's where he probably has preferred batting order in number 3. So I like that order. I think I love the fact that they're going to go with 2 pretty solid spinners too, with Majib as well as Zampa. So might be interesting for wickets there. I love me spinners. Glenn?
Yeah, What that does take for me is Maddo. Like, I mean, Maddo's somebody I really like, but batting at 5 and with 2 actual spinners in the side, I have to wonder if he gets that same role that he's had in the past. I don't think he bowls as much as he has in the past, because at 87-2, Maddo's had some really good scores with both bat and ball. But that's a strong side. That's a strong batting order. De Clock, Clark, Marsh, Finch, Maddo. And it's a strong bowling lineup too, with Sutherland, Richardson, Rogerson, Majid, and Zampa. I mean, what a side!
One thing I'll ask though, 180 for the Cock. Do you guys think he's a lock for your team?
No.
Yeah.
Let me.
You go.
Sorry, go ahead.
No.
Well, I was going to say, I have 2 perspectives on this. First perspective is he plays a doubles and then another double, right? So there's some comfort in having my sides set up for round 3, okay, where he does play. And Quinton de Kock is in amazing form and an amazing player. But at the end of the day, he's a just bat. And it's a lot of money to pay for a just bat. And, you can have a player that gets out very early. He's been playing over there in India, where the wickets are a little different to Australian wickets. He has played all around the world and been successful all around the world. So for him, he's my biggest question mark in my actual team at the moment. There's players like Hardy, Abbott. There's a whole lot of players who I feel I could use better, than a Quinton de Kock. But like Philippe, he's saving a lot of money. It's a hard one for me.
Yeah,
Ben?
I think all your points are really valid. The key point is the Renegades have the best fixture of any club in the first 3 rounds. So they've got the 2 doubles. They'll play 5 games in the first 3 rounds. So, when you're comparing de Kock to the similar price bracket guys, like you mentioned, Hardy or Abbott or Tom Curran, another example, all those guys have got round 1 doubles, but they don't have doubles in round 3 when the Renegades got the other one. So that maybe puts him ahead. But I think I'm with you, Glenn, the fact that he's a bat only. He might get some wicketkeeper points as well. But I always lean towards guys who bowl. So in my side, I've currently got Hardy ahead of him for that very reason. So I'd probably be going that way, even though his form was so good at the World Cup.
Yeah, that's exactly what I did. I actually had Quinton de Kock and I swapped him to Hardy. It's literally what I did. So I'm with you. But I have and R because there's some comfort in having that certain amount. I know it sounds weird, but I do mine by colours. I work out what colours I want going forward, and then I work out what players. It's kind of weird the way I do my SUPERCOACH. And he looks good in my side. I love Quinton de Kock. And look, Smith beat me last year. I said he's just a bat, and I didn't touch him the whole last 3 rounds, and I was doing so well. And then I dropped to 233 the last 2 rounds because of Smith, and I was at the game to add insult to injury. He's my biggest question mark is on him, eh? And Clark, I love Clark. At points per dollar, you could go Clark a lot cheaper. Well, not a lot, 40k cheaper, and still have an opening batsman for the Renegades.
Yeah. The only fear that I had with having de Kock, and this is kind of like you've touched on, is kind of like a McDermott, where if you don't have him when he goes that run, where he gets 2 centuries in a ring, you know what I mean? Like it can, especially at the start with that start that they have. If you've got those guys at risk of the biscuit and they got the first 5 games. They've got all those big points, and we're chasing our tail to start off with. That's the only fear I have. But if you can make up those dollars elsewhere, make up those points elsewhere, I can see fading him might be a good idea.
It's definitely a risk reward. That's how SUPERCOACH is, and he can come out and get 2 centuries and absolutely blitz it. But what money does he make if he does? I can tell you what money he loses if he doesn't have one good game with the bat, and that's the big question for me. Look, I'm not going to commit to either at this point, either or. It will depend on other availabilities, who comes in, who comes out, as to how my final side looks. But at this moment, based on points per dollar, I just can't make sense of it for my side.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I'm going to sit on the fence with this one. I've got him in my team at the moment, but I'm just on the fence because it's a lot of money to spend.
Yeah.
And you mentioned Clark, so 40k cheap. Is it worth him not having the gloves?
I don't think the amount of points that you get from the gloves is really. I see the wicketkeeper as an added bonus. I really look at the batsman myself and the run rate and what I think they can get. And Clark gets good points. He has a good strike rate with the bat. Look, would I like him to be at the keeper and get those extra points? Absolutely. But for 40K cheaper, I'm willing to accept it.
Yeah, I'll jump in on Clark. I don't mind the selection, and he's one we found out he's in Melbourne already, so he'll be available from the first game. There was some doubt around his availability because he's contracted to the T10 league, so can confirm that, which is comforting. But I probably lean towards the bowlers again. There's a few bowlers I like Adam Zampa, I think is just like a rusted-on lock. You need to have him in your starting side. 131K, his World Cup form was awesome. I don't see any reason for him to get rotated out of the side or anything like that. So I think he's come home from India already, so he'll get a bit of a rest in, which is great. The other ones I like Kane Richardson. I think he's probably underpriced, and he always seems to take wickets at the death. Slightly concerned the fact he's gone to India for this 5-game series that he could get rotated with Siddle in the mix, so that's something to consider. But the one I really like based on looking at the predicted 11 is Will Sutherland. Now, I say that because he might just end up being their 5th bowler. If you look at the Renegades batsmen, none of them are really recognised as capable with the ball. Maybe Maddinson, but there's potential there for Chief to, bat 6 or 7 and bowl a full 4 overs, which is a really good role. He's probably priced around about the average I'd expect. His numbers last season were inflated by his fielding points, which I don't think is sustainable. But I think the role could be really good for a guy who's playing 2 doubles in the first 3 rounds. So if you were weighing up Clark or Sutherland, I'd go Sutherland for that reason.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with you. I think that Quinton de Nock or Clark, for that matter, swapping to a Sutherland and a Zampa is an insane option. I lean towards bowlers at the start of BBL always. If you look at the history of BBL, well, I actually done a thing on it. It wasn't as skewed as heavy as I thought it was, but bowlers tend to score better. I like to lean to all rounders in my bat and bowlers in my bowling area. That's kind of how I play.
Yeah, 100%. I tend to I don't know how many times I've had my batting spots filled with all rounders, and very rarely have just a simple batter. And it's usually I don't get like the massive scores, but I'll get those consistent scores throughout. So I think that's playing it safe. So every now and then I might need to chuck a risky one in there. I think I might have a bit of a risky one this year, I'm thinking. So have a look.
It's a good point. And in the chat with Andrew Langley, the back-to-back champ, he made this point that half the battle is to avoid the low scores because they're the things which kills you. If you get the scores from 0 to 10, that really pushes you behind. So bowlers are so much more reliable than bat-onlys. So I always lean that way just to avoid those low scores, which really set you apart if you're trying to keep up with the top ranks.
I don't like Langley doing all this stuff, mate. He's giving away trade secrets.
Well, maybe someone will beat him this year.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, he's giving away his secrets, but he's ahead of the game. He's got other secrets. He's not telling everyone. I reckon he'll win it.
I'm sure there's a lot of them in BBL. Unlike most forms of SUPERCOACH, there's a lot of them in BBL, and I've no doubt that that's why people are listening to what he says. I mean, you don't win back to back. Same with Tyrone. Tyrone just is consistently good for a reason. You know what I mean? And same with this guy, and when they speak, you listen because there's some sense in what they say,
100%. All right. Anyone else in the gaze that we think that could be players of interest, guys?
No, I like Majib and I like Zampa. I like Sutherland. I like Richardson. I like all their bowlers. Tom Rogers is a little expensive. He had kind of a big season last year. Yeah, we've talked them all through. I mean, it's a very good side. And I think that my issue is with anyone batting deep like a Sutherland. I mean, you need him to bowl because I think with that top lineup, there's some heavy batting there. There's some real quality batsmen, you know what I mean, ahead of him. And that would be my fear of him with the bat. So you really would need him to bowl. But I do like it. I like the call, and I agree with you. I think based on that side that I'm looking at, Sutherland would be their 3rd pace bowler. It just makes sense.
Yeah. We saw it a bit last year where when they, based on circumstance when they were batting, that he did come in before Wells if they were trying to tee off in the last few overs. So I feel like he could move from 7 up to 6 depending on circumstance. And then obviously if Sean Marsh is out, then maybe he goes up even further. So that's why I do like him. Yeah, the other options, Peter Siddle, I just think he's going to get rotated too much. So I don't think he is a pick that you should be looking at, even though his price is really low. He might tempt a few people in if he plays the first game, but I'd just be urging caution because I can see him getting rotated a lot.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Alrighty. Fantastic. All right. So I have to add. I think they're having those two spinners in that lineup. I think, yeah, and Sutherland, he's a good death bowler. I think he can do a good job with the death. And he had proven that in the last few years. So, or maybe last year. All right. If there's nothing else, guys, let's go to you, Glenn, with the update for the Shane Warne Cup. If you got it ready there.
No, all I'm doing is saying there's 15 players that still haven't joined in. I'm not going to keep chasing people up, man. Like, it's a pretty elite competition that we run. If you want to be a part of it, find your way in. I am going to finish off the sides tomorrow. I'll go through and find out what's happening with that. What I did want to say before we end this pod really quickly is the T20 squad that's over there in India. There's a lot of big names in that, like Abbott, Maxwell, and co. I am a little concerned that the date that they finish is the 4th, and the BBL finishes starts on the 7th. Are they going to be back and playing round 1? Because there's a lot of names in there: Abbott, Maxwell, Hardy. There's quite a few names there that are, Smith, that concern me. Do you think they'll be back in time, Ben?
Well, a few of those guys will be because they're already home. So Glenn Maxwell's heading home. So all the World Cup guys except for Travis Head and Tanveer Sangha, who was carrying the drinks anyway, they've all headed home now. But you're right. There is a few guys who've been called into that squad, like Abbott, and there's a whole list actually. So it is a concern. The series ends December 3, so they'll fly home December 4. First BBL game, Stars versus Heat, is December 7. So you think that's probably the game most likely to impact, but there's probably not really anyone of relevance who's still on tour, if that makes sense, for that first game. Yep. So I think it should be okay. I think we'll get through. But Kane Richardson's the one I'm a little concerned about with that first Renegades game against the Sixers, which I think is the 8th, which is a Friday night. So he might be the one I would be a little bit afraid about because I like him as a pick, but if he's going to get rotated, it takes away all the charm.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks for that. I did miss that Maxwell was coming home. Actually,
You're not alone, mate. It has been a changing beast, so I don't blame you for missing it. It's the guys who've come in and out of that side. Like I was just trying to rattle off a few, and I couldn't come up with them because I can't remember because it's changed so much. So you're not alone.
Yep.
Awesome. Alrighty. So I just got someone from Facebook here. I haven't got any names, unfortunately. Someone saying that Stoinis is still in India and plays game 1. So I'm not sure who that is credited to because all I have here is Facebook user, unfortunately. So, alrighty, guys. Before we wrap it up, make sure you jump into our cash comps, guys. Reach out to Brod Thompson. They're filling up very quickly, guys. So reach out to Brod Thompson on our tragic Supercoach cash comp page. Brod will help you out there. You see, DM him and he'll get you into one of those comps quickly. We are very famous around here with paying out on time. We pay out pretty quickly as well, and we pay out everything. So jump on there and jump onto the Supercoach Tragics cash comp page if you get a chance as well.
It's nearly $190,000 paid out now, isn't it?
Yeah, it's been a fair bit, over the last 4 or 5 years now. So NRL, BBL. Yeah. So, looking pretty strong again. So, awesome, guys. If there's nothing else to go, let's wrap it up. We'll peace out, and we'll talk again soon. Thank you, Ben, once again for joining us, mate, and we'll talk next time, hopefully.
Yeah, thanks, Ben. I appreciate you, man. Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate it.
Appreciate the support. Go to honeyball.com.au, buy the mag, become a member, all that.
Can you throw it up on the page again right now so that all the members can see it straight away, mate? And I am going to subscribe. I'll get that either done tonight or tomorrow, and I will get the magazine as well, Ben. I will 100% do that. So
don't feel obliged, Glenn.
No, my pleasure, mate. Thank you for what you do for BBL, mate, because imagine the comp without Honeyball, like how hard it would be to gather all this information. It would be a nightmare.
I appreciate the kind words. What I'll do is I'll put the link in the comments below.
Yeah, too easy. Thank you, mate. Appreciate that. Yeah.
All right, guys. Peace out. See ya.
All right.